Alright, so it's been a minute since the last video I made, and I believe the last thing I did at the end of that video, yeah, I had made the blob storage. I had made the static website through Azure Blob Storage, and I had some of the HTML that I had wrote up, and everything that was customized in there, it was on the blob storage. And I think the next thing I wanted to do was to get making a domain that was basically, I think I was trying to initially, after that video, create a domain and map the blob storage endpoint to the domain. And basically in Azure, I'll show a little clip here of me doing that, or how I was going about doing it. But basically, in Azure, you have to, if you want to make a domain and map endpoints to it that you have through the cloud, you'd have to go through for front-facing, like a front-facing thing. You'd have to use something, a service in Azure called Azure Front Door, and Azure Front Door allows you to create a profile that can map endpoints to things. And one of the things that you can map an endpoint in Azure Front Door is a blob storage endpoint. So if you have your static web page and you have all the files and everything, and it's in that container in the blob storage, you can it has a primary endpoint. That primary endpoint can be mapped to an Azure Front Door profile, and in the profile you can manage the route that is taking place. Right, and I was doing that, and it took a while because it's a lot. I was doing that, and I made the Azure Front Door profile, the endpoint for there. The endpoint, you have to name the endpoint, and then you have to tell it what are you mapping this to. And then after you map it, since this is now a domain, it requires a certificate, and Azure has AFD, Azure Front Door Manager, I believe is what it's called. And in there, it has an automatic tool in there and resource that every 45 days, it will redo a certificate for you. And that was another option in there. I did the Azure thing because I just wanted to test it out. But after you do that, what I found is that once you create the Azure Front Door and you map the endpoint and everything, there's a step where you have to regenerate a TXT record set, and you have to take that data and put it in the DNS settings. And for the life of me, I could not get that to. So at a certain point, I did do it, and it was routing the traffic, and it was the thing said the Azure was telling me in the data that this is running, it's working, everything was green, it looked good and everything. But when you click the domain or you go to the domain, it just says it have like that error page, right? And so I knew that the issue here was you have to regenerate the TXT record set and put it in the DNS settings, but I could not get the accurate TXT data from that dialog box that it had in Azure. It just wasn't intuitive. It didn't, I don't know, I researched it. So, and at a certain point, I kind of took a step back, and I was like, what am I trying to do here? And it's like, I just need a page that can show this particular like web page that I'm trying to do through blob storage. So what I ended up doing is I just went to ghost.io and I did my web page through there, and I route the Azure resume thing that I built and linked it from the ghost.io to the Azure primary endpoint of the blob storage. So all of that work, I learned it was just out of scope for what I'm trying to do. It's just I don't need to do all of that for what I was trying to do for this step of what I'm trying to do. So, you have to. What's nice about Azure though for getting custom domains and stuff, because you can do that in Azure. It's like $11.99 a month, $11.99 a month, and everything, all the DNS, all that stuff is manageable through Azure. It's nice. It gives you so much reign over what you want, so much customization. But I know it's gonna cost a lot, and so like I don't need all of the back end stuff that Azure. I don't need. It's just not necessary for what I'm trying. Just for what it's giving you. The scope is so wide for. And I'm just trying to. I'm not trying. If I'm not shooting a chicken with a rocket launcher, like I know it's a crude reference, but I'm not trying to do all that for what I'm trying to do for this phase of what I'm trying to do. So, so I succeeded. I did the Ghost.io. I did that. It's very. I like Ghost.io. If you don't know, it's a thing where you can make little sites and stuff, and I use that. Linked the thing on there. Put all my info on Ghost.io. Now it's linked to the primary endpoint for the blob storage. Done. It's done. It's done. That's it. It's done. So, yeah, that was a big step that I was trying to do. So, glad I got that to work, and I can finally move on to the next step of this project.